Hazards and resources play a vital role in shaping and changing society for better or worse. However, do we truly understand what they are? We define hazards as potential risks to people and infrastructure that can either be naturally or culturally caused, whereas resources are assets that an individual society may hold to help it grow and deal with hazards that become disasters. Now, notice how hazards tend to have negative connotations with them, and rightly so, as they have played a part in some of the biggest global and regional disasters we have seen throughout history. City that involve hazards and resources. However, what we found was unexpected, from a ballast pit at Mount Albert to a water reservoir on Mount Hobson, from Auckland Museum to a humble skate park in Devonport, and around the city to visit the Rainbow Warrior, a Wilson car park, and a cemetery with deep connections to the history of Auckland. Our clues taught us that hazards are not all doom and gloom, yet they can produce important resources. That's why for this video essay, we aim to convince you, the watcher, that hazards aren't all bad and can produce resources.
One of our clues led us to the Auckland Museum to see a display of hazards and resources. What we found laid out the foundations for our argument. The museum showed resources through its educational content and taught us that every city or region has its own individual hazards to deal with. However, the museum taught us more than one important concept. We noticed continuous images of volcanic eruptions and even a simulation room where you can experience the terror of an eruption. It felt like we had to fear volcanoes, and rightly so, as they can cause large-scale disasters. However, nothing in the museum taught us about how volcanoes can eventually come to benefit society. It only takes one quick Google to see the same thing where most sources tend to say hazards cause harm to people. Yet hazards by themselves don't cause disasters. It's the combination of vulnerability, marginalisation, and other social factors that cause them. Our next clues broke this norm and changed our views on hazards.
Overlooking the ballast pit was the next clue. This led us to the top of Mount Albert, where we were thinking we would just find a normal hazard. However, our research showed us that the ballast pit was a scoria storage pit. This scoria pit played a role in building throughout 1900s Auckland because of its use in a variety of different types of infrastructure. We eventually realised that the ballast pit was both a hazard and a resource. This theme continued as we were led around Auckland searching for a clue that involved a water source built in the early 1900s. Naturally, we thought this meant the Waitakere Dam or the pump station at Western Springs, yet this clue only held notice to a resource and not a hazard. And so our search continued till we were led to Mount Hobson. After realising a recurring theme of volcanic hazards in Auckland, Mount Hobson, as well as the other volcanic domes around Auckland, could hold water reservoirs as well. This was perfect for Auckland due to the sheer amount of these available to the regional city as a staple water source in the early 1900s. Mount Albert and Mount Hobson both showed that resources came from hazards themselves. So it was only fitting that one of our clues would show one of these resources in practice. Our next clue was at the Wilson car park in Auckland CBD. This site utilised volcanic material similar to the one found in the Mount Albert ballast pit. This material was used for building the surrounding infrastructure. This provided both a barrier to protect the car park from potential hazards and keep it secure.
We eventually noticed that all of these hazards and resources so far shared a common theme, that they were both volcanic and both physical. Yet our other clues did not match this trend, and it became important to remember that not all resources are physical, and not all hazards have to cause big disasters. One of our clues took us to the Symonds Street Cemetery. This particular location holds a lot of historic value to Auckland, and was an important resource for the Māori. All this, Grafton Valley and the cemetery were, and still is, a fundamental area for the development of Auckland City. Understanding the history, utilisation and social impacts that the Grafton Valley and Symonds Street Cemetery had, we as a group have learnt that it still serves as an educational resource today. The Rainbow Warrior Memorial Site was an important clue we were intended to visit. It marks an integral part of New Zealand's history and identity. The Rainbow Warrior was a Greenpeace boat that was used to protest against anti-whaling, anti-sealing, and anti-nuclear testing and dumping in the 1970s and 80s. The Rainbow Warrior Memorial stands on Quay Street to commemorate those who sacrificed their time to protect New Zealand, and also as an educational resource to our country. The significance of this memorial as an educational resource is the hope for a cleaner future and to help retain our identity as a country. Kia tia katanga is an important Māori expression which means guardianship and protection. This ties in with the significance of the memorial and reflects the Rainbow Warrior and with all the work they did to protect New Zealand from environmental hazards. Education as a resource does not necessarily have to originate from historic events alone. We can learn and teach each other through present-day means. The next clue is associated with Paradise and Rubbish, which we link to the Devonport and Newmarket skate parks, which are redeveloped rubbish dumps. The rubbish was once a potential hazard. However, this hazard has been transformed into a resource. The skate park now provides a place where people of all ages can relax and socialise as a community.
In conclusion, we know hazards and resources play a vital role in shaping society and how we interact with the environment around us. We should respect the damage hazards can lead to, yet appreciate the resources they can provide, from buildings to water, from skate parks to important historic lessons. The best we can do is learn from it and build a better society through it. Remember, kaitia katanga, to protect and guard our environment for future generations to come.